Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mary should be here momentarily. Let's go ahead and observe our moment of silence and pledge of allegiance, and then I've got some opening remarks. Thank you very much. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
She should hear your remarks while we don't mind.
Okay.
All right. I think she got it for you.
What's that talk?
Did you get a demerit or something?
I'm sorry?
When you're late for Rotary, you got to pay a fine. So.
Charge her a fine.
Yeah. Lions Club.
Dozen donuts for next time.
I'm resting sometimes.
Does it actually wear a tie there anymore?
Not anymore, for that reason. I cut Bill Schwartz off when I was a television. And I thought I told him I was gonna do it, and evidently I didn't because he wore his favorite tie.
If I do a little walking, I have the oxygen because my problem is
Must involve his
saturation.
favorite beverage.
I start to sleep with
Make
me.
him high.
I messed up with my mother. She had lung cancer. You know, I was thinking that I would pump up the oxygen.
All right, I'd entertain a motion that we invoke Mary's fine. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Mary, quite
Mary, yeah.
Please excuse my
A dozen donuts, Mary.
hairdo.
A dozen donuts next time.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, Mary, we have called the meeting to order. We have had our moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I was getting ready to read some opening remarks, but Mr. Thomas suggested that he'd like for you to hear them as well, so that's where we're at. We've not had any actual meeting discussions yet, but we're getting ready to. Okay. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I know that this is not a convenient time to meet, but this is a topic that is important, that we need to we need to take some action on. So I want to start with this. Since February, I've gone back and looked at the minutes and agendas. This is the 9th time that this topic of hiring 3 additional firefighters has been discussed in council chambers in a public setting. This does not include any fire accreditation meetings or individual one-on-one conversations between council members and firefighters. 8 times it has been officially placed on the agenda, and 9 times it has been discussed. All of these have been in public forums. The notion that is otherwise is inaccurate. Just since this topic has been introduced in February, we as a council have allocated funding or discussed allocating funding for the following: to complete the physical structure of the Colonial Theater, hiring a person to manage or operate the Colonial Theater, purchasing the Knights of Pythias property across the street and tearing the house down, demolition and reconstruction of the Madison Street property, and facilitating community input about what the community might want to see in the place of the Chase Bank drive-thru. All of this has been done without ever mentioning a permanent or dedicated funding source to maintain these expenditures long-term. Months ago, City Council asked the fire department to provide a needs analysis to justify their request to add 3 additional firefighters. Chief Kimball and Captain Baxa provided in detail a report showing the difference in rapid response times aligned with their ongoing accreditation process and industry best practices, all for the goal to save more lives and property. City Council then asked for a wage breakdown, and most importantly, the effect adding 3 additional firefighters would have on the department's overall overtime calculation. Additionally, Council wanted to see if adding 3 firefighters would help in any way reduce the overtime expenditure on behalf of the city. Once again, Chief Kimball and Captain Baxa returned to council with a detailed breakdown. Each council member received that breakdown in print copy. For the record, in response to yet another discussion, all of the paid staff support being placed under FLSA, with some modification to base pay to help the city reduce overtime within the department. City Council also asked if a SAFER grant funding was available to help us hire the 3 additional firefighters. Unfortunately, the grant funding could not be used for adding staffing, instead only bringing back laid off or furloughed staff or to support current staff, neither of which we qualify because we've not laid anybody off. The council has heard from several members of the paid staff, members of the volunteer department leadership, and members of other volunteer departments within our community, all who see the value and the necessity for the city to hire 3 additional members. Public safety is a baseline necessity for cities to adequately staff and equip. We are fortunate to live in a safe, affordable community where little activity takes place. Our law enforcement and firefighter professionals do not run calls on every shift, and that is a good thing. But we're not making an investment to public safety for our past events. We are making public safety investments for what could happen. It's not an if, it's a when. And although this town is small, we are not without the chance to have a major event. This is an insurance policy for our city, and I want us to have the best. We have a responsibility as decision makers for our community to make sure that when the citizens call 911, we have well-staffed and well-equipped professionals ready to answer the call. As for funding, our 1% sales tax application clearly states, and I have a copy of it that I'd be happy to read here once I'm finished with these remarks, clearly states that we will invest funds earned to add staffing and equipment for our fire department and ensure that both of those are at adequate levels. The application was submitted and approved in lieu of a first due fire fee or increasing fees within city limits. A few months ago, when we were drafting our budget for 2021 and 2022, we estimated that we would have a balance on hand of approximately $700,000 on July 1st. At our July 1st council meeting, we learned that the balance on hand is actually roughly $1.3 million. Learning of this, in my opinion, it is irresponsible of us not to invest $200,000 of that $1.3 million into adding fire department staffing, considering the fact that what we asked for, we were provided in a needs analysis that shows that that is what we need to do. It is also inappropriate to impose additional charges to our citizens, either within or outside city limits, when we are proving that we have the funds to be able to support the department's request. And real quick, I will read 2 paragraphs. Actually, I'll read just excerpts of a couple paragraphs in lieu of, to save time. The city certainly has alternative avenues with which to raise revenue. It may increase fire and police fees, implement a stormwater service fee within the certain watersheds, and collect a fire fee from its first due service area, including areas outside the municipality. All of those will deeply be negative impact on our community. The first due fire fee, or for implementing a first due fire fee, will negatively impact the county fire departments in which all support the city of Buckhannon. Bottom down to the next paragraph. The city of Buckhannon anticipates using the increase in revenue to fully fund municipal stabilization fund, invest in public safety services, ensuring the city's police and fire departments are properly staffed, equipped, trained, and implement a city stormwater management plan. That is what is in our 1% sales tax application. So, we have had multiple meetings, and we've had this discussion time and time again. it is my opinion, and I am imploring the council to take action today to add 3 additional firefighters to our city ranks. This is a baseline necessity. We have the funds, and we have a department that is one of the absolute best in the state. You know, I travel to a lot of different municipalities, and I hear other mayors, and I hear other council members, and I hear other public safety departments talk about how great Buckhannon's fire department and Buckhannon's police department are. If you go to the Charleston City Fire Department, the Charleston City Fire Department will tell you how great the Buckhannon Fire Department is. The largest fire department in the state will talk to you about how great the Buckhannon Fire Department is. It is time for us to support our department and also support our community. And with that, I would open it up to council comments, and then anybody who wants to speak to us who's in the room today may do so. Thank you for hearing my comments.
Well, Mayor, I've sat here year after year after year, and the fire department has come year after year after year and have brought the data to us to show us why we have the need for that. And our responsibility is, number one, is emergency services for the people in Buckhannon. And one of the reasons we passed the 1% sales tax was to go toward emergency services, and that's why I voted for that, because we could put that toward emergency services, and that was part of the reason was for the fire department. And I am in favor of hiring the 3 firemen, and we have the money to do that. And I have talked to people out in the community, and they're in favor of whatever we need to do because that's what we need to do, is take care of the people first. And we've given money to lots of other things, and our emergency services need to come first.
Thank you.
Is there a particular order?
No, anybody who wants to speak.
I'm certainly in favor of hiring 3 additional firemen. The need is there, it's been demonstrated. Revenues are always going to be a concern. We talk about the first due and fire fees, and what are members of the rest of the county doing, contributing to this need. It's just not a Buckhannon need, it's a county need. That's another can to kick down the road for another day, I guess, or issue to deal with on another day, but the need has been presented, and I personally wholeheartedly support it. We have the funding, and one thing we don't want to do is live our lives with a bunch of what ifs. What if we had done this, or what if we had done that? I've been there recently. And the bottom line is what if we don't do it? And the need's there. We cannot put our firemen at risk. They're the ones who are answering the calls. They're the ones who are at risk when they go to a call. And if they're spread too thin and they don't have the manpower to adequately address an emergency, we're putting them at risk for bodily harm as well, even death. We don't want that to happen. And we need to staff adequately and meet the need. And that's my point of view. All these gentlemen in the back and those who aren't present, they are valuable people in our community that have abilities and skills that we need to support, we need to augment, and so to me, it's just the right thing to do is to employ 3 additional firemen. That's all I have to share.
Thanks, Jack. Anybody else from council want to speak?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
and I too have been doing my own research. Over the time that I've been on city council, we've always had the best when it comes to our fire department and to our police department, okay? And they educate us on what they need, what their needs are, and their training, and they're not good old country boys who are just want to play in firemen. They're professional people, okay? And yes, you don't know when you're going to go responding, police or fire, okay? So I don't want you to think that I do not support you and respect you for the work that you do. Actually, I thank you for what you've done. Anyways, but I got a couple of questions. And I don't know if we've talked about that or maybe I missed that part. The county commission needs to be addressed about, unless you've already been talking about that.
We have had several meetings with the county commissioners about this. The issue here is that we're not talking about any county departments.
No.
This is the city of Buckhannon is the sole funder of the paid fire department.
I
The
know.
county commission does not contribute to any of the salaries. So this is a city issue that we have to decide as a city council, are we going to hire 3 additional firefighters? As far as the relationship with the county really is not interested in having the discussions about emergency services.
I understand, but how many runs you gonna go in the county?
About 35% of our call volumes outside the city.
That's a lot of 35%, okay? And I think that the county commission needs to be addressed about the pitching in because the county doesn't run fire departments. I don't know if they give money to the little fire departments. I think if they do, it's not a whole lot. But they're needed out there too. But our guys go to help them, and they come in when they can. They come in, and I just think they need to look at the bigger picture about that.
Right, we're providing services in the county and funding them with city revenue.
Right.
Now, the argument that this revenue could be generated by county residents shopping at our retail establishments and the sales tax and the B&O, that has some validity. But and the other things that the mayor mentioned in his opening comments about spending money, these are generally acquisitions of tangible assets or the development of tangible assets, real estate, etc. And what we're talking about here is creating a reoccurring, permanent $200,000 a year cost to the city without an assigned revenue stream. And to say that that doing a first due to accommodate the 35% of our efforts in delivering emergency services out there, I think there's validity to that. Nobody does anything until they have to. We haven't been able to break through some collaborative agreement with the county on how to develop this. So, and as I look at some of the information that we've gotten, over the years since 2001, our volunteer staff has gone down from 34 to about 14. But we have 7 paid staff, but that includes the chief, right? So, and we mentioned overtime. And, if I took 7 days a week times 24 hours, that's 168 hours. Times 7 firemen, it's 420. So we currently with 7, but you're not paid for, you're not on the, you schedule yourself for how many hours a week?
Monday through Friday, or, if I have meetings at night, I may adjust the next day a little bit, but something else is going on. But I come back on, Saturday, Sundays calls. You can look at the record of the volume of calls I return on my days off.
Right. Because we had an average of 20.83 hours per week per fireman outside of yourself. And in the evaluation that you presented to us in the last chapter, talking about the impact of hiring these 3 staff, you know, if the city were to choose to increase maximum daily staffing, meaning hiring and scheduling a 3rd firefighter, they could keep a minimum of 2 as the daily staffing. This would allow for a firefighter to be off without scheduling a firefighter to cover a shift. In order to maintain safe working conditions, a manner of ensuring a capable supervisor for the shift be created. It may not be wise to drop the 2 firefighters on duty during the weekends, which is a statistical high utilization time. You have more calls. While there is truly no net savings by hiring firefighters to eliminate this overtime cost, it does cut down on overtime work by firefighters, which says one thing and unsays it in the next phrase. So,
Mr. Rollins, if the FLSA program, of course, with the 53-hour work week before you get overtime, there's a savings there. The minimum of 2, right now the city puts out about $20,000 to $25,000 in extra overtime for vacations, sick leave, and stuff like that. If you had the minimum of 2, you would not be paying that out. That would be your savings if you had the minimum of 2 with 3 on a normal shift. And I've spoke to the mayor and Amby about the concern about if we would go to the 3 shift. The concern is if a shift officer takes off during the week, a day of vacation, and leaving a 2 or 3 year veteran fireman with a new fireman, I would be there during the day for 8 hours or whatever it take, you know, from 8 to 4, 7 to 3, and cover that shift officer's time. But on the weekends and when I'm not available, somebody would have to cover that until we get those new members trained and the middle firefighters trained to be officers. Then the 2 would be standard. So you would not be, if somebody took sick leave or took a day of vacation, you would not be paying the overtime for somebody to cover that shift.
and part of this need is because of the reduction in the volunteers, and in the past, I believe we've had a live-in intern. Is that program still operating?
It's still our current live-in is moving out. I mean, he's a college student. We have approached the college about looking for a new one. So, of course, we have to wait till like August when the students start progressing to come to school to find out who's a fireman, or, you know, who's interested in doing that. And a lot of times we found that, you know, freshmen are probably not our best group to look at because it's all new to them. And sometimes you have to get that newness out, let them spend a year of college before they start maturing enough to be able to live in a firehouse.
So you're looking for a sophomore?
Preferably, yes. The current one we have now, he came in as a freshman. He's a junior this year, but he is working also while he's going to school, and he has his own place now.
So when you mentioned FLSA, you know, in my research, and I guess you and Tom attended a seminar on this, you know, my intention was to reduce the amount of the cost to the city. But you know, once an employee has been, you know, used to earning a certain wage, in my business, I've never cut anyone's salary. If I've made someone a manager and it didn't work out, they went back as a cook at the same wage. So, you know, I'm not looking to do that, but I'm concerned that we hire 3 more, that they fall into the same amount of getting scheduled for 20 hours of overtime every week. And how would you adjust that overtime rate? Would it be by seniority, or the new people wouldn't get the same amount, or would you go and schedule these new hires for 60 hours like the rest of them?
Well, being that it'd be a 53-hour work week, so
If you go to FLSA.
go to FLSA, so you,
For the 3 new ones.
yes, I mean the whole career staff, the current staff has agreed to go to that also, which in the end, you know, you have a 48-hour work week, you have a 56-hour or 55-hour work week, and a 65-hour work week. So, you know, the 48-hour work week, you would not pay any overtime. It'd all be straight time. The 55-hour work week, you'd have 2 hours of overtime in that week. The 65-hour work week, you'd have 12 hours. So there'd still be, just like a traditional fire department clear across the country with the 24/48s, which is, you know, 90% of the shifts that are worked across the country. You're going to have that little bit of overtime, but the savings, you know, you're looking at, you know, 55-hour work week, you're only getting 2 hours overtime instead of 15. So really, you're saving 6.5 hours times 2. Then the person's on 65 hours, you're saving hours there also. The biggest savings with the 3 per shift is, once we go to a minimum of 2, is that overtime and from sick leave and vacation. You know, traditionally, right now is our vacation time. A lot of people going to the beach. You know, people didn't get to take vacation last year, so they're taking vacation, and that's right now. Lieutenant Baxa and John Brugnoli are working. If Lieutenant Baxa takes off, Captain Baxa or Captain Elmore come in, and it's an overtime shift, and that's how. But if we go to a minimum 2, once everybody's trained to their positions, you won't be hiring that person back.
So have you done any pro formas on, you know, applying FLSA and scheduling as you see with the hiring of the 3? I mean, in 2020 we had gross wages of $398,000, I believe, divided by 7. That's $56,865 average fireman wage, but that's thrown in. That includes your wages, correct? So it probably pushes it up a little bit, right?
Yes.
And I believe the police department is about $3,000 or $4,000 less as an average with the chief's pay in it. You know, part of my concern is that, you know, all the firemen are in the top half paid employees of the city of Buckhannon, and that someone potentially that's working in another department for 20 years could be earning less than the new hire. And, you know, what's the potential for, you know, wage inflation, and all the other departments coming and saying, hey, here's what's happening here. I mean, there's different skill sets, and I guess they have the choice to get the training and come to be employed as a fireman, but...
So normally, you know, and I'll use one employee as an example that we've talked about, that certain employee worked over $7,000 extra dollars in overtime last year because somebody was off injured. Okay.
Right.
So
It's always something.
it's always something. Once we go to that 2 minimum, once the employees are trained up, you won't have that extra overtime. So that same employee that we discussed would be in the same ballpark as the second command of the police department as far as the salary. So it would be reduced because there wouldn't be that extra overtime at that point. That your year end would be, you know, you'd be looking at transparent police and fire. You know, like right now, the hourly wage of a starting trained firefighter is $12 an hour. A police officer gets out of the academy, it's 19 something. But at the end of the year, the end of the year salaries are comparable, even though the fireman has been, you know, at the firehouse longer.
Yeah. So I've heard some other councilmen say that there's no need for a first due fire fee because we are currently have the capital in our accounts, the money. But as I said in the beginning, this is a permanent increase that's going to reoccur every year without any new revenue stream. I understand the consequences, potential consequences it has out in the county, but I have difficulty in allocating this money permanently. You know, over 10 years, this is $2 million, and it's going to stay with us forever. I have, over my lifetime, been in situations where revenues, you know, increases and spikes, and I've increased expenses to match it or made investments or something, and then the revenue drops, and I'm left, you know, dealing with the consequences of that. as a fiduciary for the city, I think all of us should consider that, you know, we have some money, but you can, one thing's for certain, things change. And without a revenue stream, this to me seems risky and potential for putting us in a bind at some future date. And I support, you know, years ago when we first started having conversations with the police department, I was probably viewed as the, you know, an enemy of the police department or against them in some capacity, because I wanted the philosophy of engagement and operation of the police department to be aligned with the community's expectations and in the best interest of everyone. And I think I've proven over the last decade that I support the police department. I've been on their accreditation board, and they're about to achieve something. And I think they're doing great. So I'm in no different, my perception is no different with the fire department. My intentions that you become as effective and efficient and across the state be held up as an exemplary model of someone delivering emergency services. But I can't see that happening without some accommodation to pay for this. And how do you feel about the first due fire fee?
I'm going to go back. You know, I had a discussion with Mr. Sanders a while back, and you know, him and I were talking about the presentation, the needs analysis, and stuff like that. And you know, the first due is something that I think all entities should collaborate together about. I think the county fire fee is things that need. It's a big elephant. We can only bite it off one bite at a time. And you know, the intentions of this fire department is not to hurt any other entity in this community. These other fire departments assist us on a regular basis. We assist them. You know, we were in Rock Cave the other day assisting them with the fire because the staffing issue is a countywide problem. It's not just, it's countrywide. The volunteerism, as you all saw the numbers, it's so what we have done with our program, with our mentor program, our training program, you know, our different types of ways of spending time at the firehouse. We have members, just like Derek here, that's here, spends hours at the firehouse. Derek's been a member for a year and a half. At no time in my career, I might sound like former mayor of college, but with my 30-some years in the fire department, when I got in the fire department, it took me about 8-9 years to be a driver. But with his abilities and some other people's abilities, we put them in positions that was never offered during my time as a young fireman. You know, we have tried different mechanisms we have a recruitment program now that we're working on. You know, we're working with the college. Spoke yesterday at service scholars coming in. One of our last service scholars, Maggie, took firefighter 1, and now she's a dedicated volunteer. But in a year, she's going to med school. So you know, it's
a constant process.
Yes.
So back to the first due. You know, we have the capacity to charge 1.5 times what we currently charge in the city limits, which is $3 per resident and $35 per business, I believe. And that would give us the capacity to charge $4.50 to residents and 1.5 times 35 to businesses. And I believe there's 3,800 some residents out in our first due, according to some mapping.
Yes, that's true.
There's 3,600 households.
Yeah. So that has the potential to raise $209,000 approximately, and you subtract the postage and billing costs of probably $25,000, $30,000. Administrative and collection processing. So we're looking at basically paying for what the cost of what hiring these 3 firemen will cost the city. We understand there's potential impacts out in the county, but you know, I'm an advocate of developing a training center out on Mud Lick. We've had brief conversations about this, but I would fully endorse the investment of $75,000 or $100,000 to develop that project, which could be viewed by the county along with the hiring of the 3 firemen as getting something for their money from the first due payment. So if we invest in a training center that we can utilize for all the departments, and if we have to be there as trainers, I would endorse the payment, that over time as an extra cost that's well spent to train the people out in the volunteer departments. But I think without a first due, I don't see how we, as this entity, can make that investment unilaterally. I mean,
I understand your concerns. Getting back to Mr. Sanders' last discussion, we presented the needs analysis, our timelines of response, the whole 9 yards. And when I started speaking about ways of funding it, and it was directed to me that my job is to show the need, not how to fund it. Is a first due an option? Obviously it is. I do know what a first due will do to the other fire departments. I don't know if the county's in a position to help them if we do that. And I don't know, but
nobody does anything until they have to.
I understand that. But I also want to realize those same fire departments are the ones that, at times are here to help us on major incidents here in the city.
You mentioned, and I think Mr. Sanders commented on a call he had going out to Rock Cave, and I think he sent 6 firemen to deal with it because they didn't have the number of volunteers. But from my position as a councilman, I said, what position did that put us in Buckhannon, sending our assets out to the third due area instead of the first due or second?
Rock Cave comes here.
Right.
They empty their station to come here. Every fire department, whether it be Weston, Elkins, when we call Elkins, they send an engine and 5 people, all 24 miles. Weston sends an engine. That's where we're at in the fire service. It's crossing county lines. I'll use Philippi for example. They're pulling 2 and 3 Harrison County fire departments to assist Philippi in Barber County now.
And I think that's well intentioned.
So it's just to a point now that staffing is critical. Is a training facility a goal? It's a strategic goal. Sure it is. We have the training mechanism to take care of that. But I think the training facility with collaboration with the other fire departments with an investment over a period of time, those fire departments can see the reward with training, coming here and training with us. They also get the reward of the ISO points to reduce their ISO rating because it's within a certain distance of their fire department. So I think the collaboration could start in a room with county commissioners and chiefs of other fire departments to try to get a 5-year, 10-year commitment from every fire department for X amount of dollars to work on that.
Well, I think that in the mayor's opening comments, we referenced the fact that we've met 8 or 10 or whatever number of times talking about this, and where did we get? So to say we're going to go out and talk to the county, I think we need to take unilateral action that's aligned with the best interests of everyone down the road. And so I don't want to dominate what's going on here, but my position is, I support the expansion, the hiring, but only with the institution of the first due fire fee at the rates 1.5 times the city limits, where people inside the city limits see no change, and the people that are receiving these services out in the county are going to be paying an amount for it. And we also mentioned that we have 1.3 million or whatever dollars that we would allocate some of that money towards a training, to start working on a training center and do it, to show that we're going to take this and make these capital investments to try to give the opportunity to improve all these departments. So
I appreciate your concern.
all right, thank you.
Mary had another question.
Chief, you're in favor of a fire training place out there?
That is, we've talked about that numerous times in the past few months about, we have the training mechanism as far as instructors. When ISO grades your fire department, they look for facilities training, which is a fire facility. And really, we cannot obtain those points, the max points, because we don't have a facility within a certain distance of our fire department. The city has property out on Mud Lake, 40 or 50 acres, correct me if I'm wrong, behind, where the old pistol range was.
Yeah.
And Jerry Arnold and I had spoke about, at some point, and if you show intention, you can get some points, is leveling an area and running a 6-inch water line from the main line at the waste department up and put a fire hydrant in. And that's intention, so you can get some points off of that. But it's a plan, Captain Back said there's a class in November on how to build these structures. They're
Good. That was my
they're
next
Connex
question.
boxes that are designed to be stacked, and we have a welder at the waste department. And I also thought about incorporating collaboration with the Board of Education with the welding class at the trade school to build this.
And another thing, the trade school has a lot of technical stuff,
The
but
trade
not
school just-
fire.
Yeah, the
Not
trade
fire.
school just put lights up in the firehouse. They do a wonderful job.
Yeah.
The camaraderie, the kids come in, they see the fire trucks. It might create a spark with them on the fire department. But also, Jerry and I spoke about, as time goes on, building a little restroom and maybe a little meeting room for training at the site. So there you go again. You go to the trade school, they have block and masonry classes and all that stuff. So we could incorporate the Board of Education
Well, that was my next thing.
with collaboration with them and the welder at the waste department,
Right.
and build this structure for pennies on the dollar. I mean, the Connex boxes are like $3,000 a piece, and the one that we're really looking at is like a 3-tier. It's 2 stacked with one.
We could do it for our area right here.
Yes.
But then there's other areas out that does not have anything like
No.
that.
We-
But you could charge them.
Yes.
Okay.
I think you'd offer those services for free as a combination for charging them a fire fee.
Well, yeah.
And I would support overtime for our members to be the trainers.
Yeah, if they're willing to do that, yeah, I'm sure they would.
Microphone, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, you have any comments?
David?
What time is it here? Better call on lunch. Yeah, I have a few observations I'd like to make anyway.
Were you done?
Are you done, Mary?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, David, sorry.
And I think the couple key things from my perspective, when CJ said permanency, I would not have an issue for maybe 1 year to use the sales tax money to go ahead and make this decision for the long term. However, the permanency issue really concerns me. I don't think we should take monies that we have just recently started receiving and already make a commitment to tie up 10 to 20% of it permanently. I don't think that's right, especially when the benefit is going to be primarily to the first due area, and other parts of the county too. But the point is, where has the county commission been in regard to the fire fee that they charge the county residents? It's been stuck at the same thing ever since they initiated it over 20 years ago. I think that's reprehensible to me that they haven't addressed that issue at some point in time.
Mr. Thomas, can I make a remark on that?
Sure you can.
Okay, the Upshur County Fire Association has to direct that. So that the Fire Association is part of it, and the Fire Association has not been active since COVID started.
But how about 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
No, I can't answer for that.
Well, that's
But
the point.
I'm just explaining that, and last night I got a message from the current president of the association that he's resigning, that he don't have time. The treasurer resigned last night. There was supposed to be a meeting and they canceled the meeting and they both resigned. So the association has been sort of inactive, and, that's something that needs to be reviewed, and that has to be brought forth to the fire board. The fire board brings it to the county commission for the 10% and 30% signatures.
Yep.
And that's how you have to go about it.
Boy, I'll tell you, JB, you make a strong case for metro government just talking about that. And everybody makes fun of me about metro government, but I guarantee you, we have a broken system throughout this country in a lot of different areas. And this is something that ought to be dealt with the county commissioners and the city council to say, look, we have a need out here, and how are we going to deal with it? And it just don't put it on the city residents to deal with it. It involves the county residents, and we're not doing that. We're also not doing, we're going to get a lot of money in the next X amount of years because of the sales fee, sales tax. We need to sit down as a city council, the mayor and the recorder, and how are we going to prioritize how those monies are to be used? Possibly sometimes it should be used for exactly what we're talking about today, but not permanently. We don't want to tie that up permanently. There's a lot of other things that could be done. We could finish the Stockard Youth Complex. We could say, okay, a one-time gift from the sales tax to the Stockard building fund and so forth, and let's get started on that. And we need to have those kind of meetings for the future. And I would like to involve county citizens in some of those discussions. I think it's very important. But the first due to me is a critical issue from the standpoint that it is going to be reoccurring, and it will level the playing field a little better than what it is today. You know, the city residents subsidize the people in the first due area to a large degree. And I don't think that's fair. I mean, I believe in fairness and level playing fields and so forth. But I think the county commission has sort of looked the other way in regard to this, and they shouldn't. They should be challenging the fire board that we do need increases in the fire fees for the county. And I worry about, you know, we're dealing with it this year. We'll get it resolved in a way that I think is good for everybody. But what are they going to do 10 and 15 years down the road? How are we going to deal with this? Are we going to have these controversial discussions all the time? Maybe we should. But I think it's an issue that we have to deal with in a very nice way.
Yes, sir.
I could say, okay, for 1 year, we'll put this into effect to take care of the 3 additional people, or 2 plus the training center. But I don't want to say that's permanent, because I think we'll have some other issues out there in our residence area, the city area. And we have a lot of things that we need to accomplish as a council and as a county commission. And I think a lot of that should be done together, not be adversarial. And sometimes I think it's almost adversarial. It happened that way with the J.F. Allen property, that they wanted to set up situations there.
I think if you do this with the quasi-intention, take this money out of our reserves and do that with the intention of doing something a year from now, I don't think that's plausible. I don't think it's going to happen.
It won't ever get done. It'll be
No,
passed on
it's
down
not
the road.
going to.
That's what I'm worried about.
And then it's going, and we're not going to reduce the staff. So, I mean, it's not on the agenda here today, but, you know, I'm kind of a handshake kind of guy. If this council, you know, says that they support the first 2, you know, I support this initiative. But if we don't have that support, then I don't support hiring. I mean, that's just my position.
Could you repeat that again, CJ?
Okay, let's see. I'm a handshake kind of guy, that if this council agrees to institute a first due, because this is going to take 6 months, I don't know, Tom, how long does it take
To what?
to institute a first due? You got to have 3 readings, or?
Yeah, publication, public hearing, it's maybe, 3 months.
But we have the ability to do that, right, Tom?
Yeah, well, yeah, what's that, I'm sorry?
We can do that. We can initiate.
The city can implement the first due fee at any time. It's not obligated to do it concurrent with the hiring of 3 new firefighters. It is, it can keep this in its back pocket and pull it out when it's needed. It's not obligated to do it now. It's not obligated to do it at any particular time. It's a power that it has that's granted by state code that can be deployed when appropriate.
Jamie,
It's just a matter, it's a policy matter as to when the council determines it's appropriate.
JB, when you did your need analysis, you did mention one time about other counties that have first due. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How many
Other
counties?
cities.
Other cities. How many do?
Well, Elkins has one. Philippi
Bridgeport.
has one,
Bridgeport.
Bridgeport has one. And they also, it's a city that implements it into a first due area because the State Fire Commission produces the Buckhannon Fire Department Fire District. And in the Bridgeport case law, it says that Bridgeport, even though it's a city, is responsible for that first due area.
Right. And that's what we have in some type of scenarios.
Well, but the counties
Yeah.
didn't have the first, right? The cities
Counties
took.
didn't have fire fees in place first.
Yes.
This one does.
Yes,
This one
yes,
does.
this is a
Can you tell
different
us how-
situation.
Can you tell us how it will affect the county fire department?
If you would pull the housing and the commercial out of the current county fire fee, it's about right at a half or better of the income that goes into that. So you're probably looking at between $12,000 to $15,000 loss for each fire department if that happens. So that being said, for years, the people that live outside the city limits right around us is the biggest part of the population. Our fire district is around 13,800 people. Okay, the county's 24,000. So we have, 56, 58% of the population in our district, but we have 95% of the commerce, the businesses are in our fire district. If you remove that and they start paying a first due fire fee, those fire departments currently get, for easy math, about $28,000 to $30,000 out of the county fire fee. They will go to about $10,000 to $12,000.
How will that affect their ability to
I'm
operate?
sure it would affect them financially because they're not.
About $72,000 in reduction to the county fire fee collections.
It was like 120,000, I believe, reduction was the last thing that we saw in
You
it.
had 12,000, which you.
Now remember that 13,800 includes the 5,600.
Let's just say
There's
it's 15,000, times 6 fire departments, including the Buckhannon volunteer fire
there's
department.
7 volunteer
Seven.
fire departments.
So it's about 100,000.
Yeah. I think the last thing when we sit down was like 113,000.
In the context of, I don't know what the county's gross budget is, but I don't think $100,000 is anything that's going to break the bank, so to speak. And if we removed $100,000 of fire funding, but increased ours by $210,000 to offer services to the county, I think there's a net increase of delivered services. But
Okay, has everybody that's on city council had a chance to speak to what their thoughts are?
Well,
Sorry,
I'll be
Mr.
very
Spears.
quick and try to be as concise as possible because I've wrestled with this as much as everyone else at this table. The first due fire fee has to stay on the table. Whether we tie it to this or not, I don't want I don't want this motion to go down because we're tying the first due fire fee to it, but it has to remain on the table. It's not fair to the fire department for them to be held out any longer because of something that has to be negotiated between the city council, the county fire board, and the county commission. That's our job. That's not the job of the fire. We have a fine group of firemen. We have, how many certified trainers do we have in the fire department? Exactly. We're on the road to accreditation. I certainly hope that Captain or Lieutenant? Captain Baxa, I certainly hope Captain Baxa will consider continuing to lead the effort for the accreditation. We have a lot of work to do, and I would invite the cameras to continue to follow the work that we have to do with the county fire board, with the county commissioners. I have a lot of optimism of working with the county. Some of my colleagues may disagree with me, but I have a lot of optimism. And I think if the public focus remains on us and remains on the county commissioners and remains on the county fire board, and people care, people pay attention, there's a lot of opportunity for reasonable minds to be shown to the community, reasonable and very good decisions can be made for everyone within the city limits, within the county lines, to help everyone. One of the problems that we encounter is we have some very robust and exciting and great meetings that last for 60 minutes and 90 minutes and 180 minutes, and then we go our separate ways and we forget to schedule another meeting. And then all of a sudden we realize, oh, 3 months have passed and we haven't followed up on this. Some of us are out doing our homework, and some of us are making phone calls, and some of us are doing that. But then we forget to have another public meeting, and we have to be better than that. I know that some of us have 2 and 3 and 4 meetings and 5 meetings a week, but that's what we sign up for. So we have to continue to do that, to represent the employees of this city, to represent the citizens of the city, to represent the citizens of the county. We have to be aggressive to do that. You know, and I pledge to continue to do that. I know that fellow members of this council will pledge to do that. I put my business on hold. I have to make a living like everyone else, and I have the biggest weekend of my year in private citizenry. You know, it's happening this weekend. I have people coming literally right now into the city to set up for the biggest production I do, but this is more important right now to be here. And I'll put all of that on hold, and they can wait until I'm finished with this meeting. We all have to pledge to continue to do that. That's why we choose to be in these positions. So when we have a motion, you know, I have to make my decision on what I trust can be negotiated in the future with the entities that we have to work with. But I also have to decide what has to be done now to move this city forward in a progressive manner, in a safe manner, and do it to clear my conscience so I go to sleep tonight feeling that I've done the very best for this community. And I hope my colleagues will feel the same way. So those are my comments. And I don't know if anyone else, the mayor will call upon anyone that's sitting here in the chambers if they have any comments to be made. This is a tough one. We've kicked it down the road, the can down the road way too long. It's taken us way too long to get to this decision. And I hope that as we face other tough decisions in the future, we don't put them off this long. I just hope we continue to have meetings in an aggressive manner and in a positive manner, and we get these decisions made on behalf of our citizens.
Thank you. Does anybody in attendance today wish to speak to us before we call for a motion and a vote? Okay. Please keep your comments brief. Council Lady Caperi has an appointment, so we need to be out of here by 10:15. So, Captain Baxter, you're first.
If you'll go to a microphone, or where's the microphone? Yeah.
Right there with the chief. He'll hold it for you.
I just want to clarify a couple things that were discussed. The training facility, that takes a lot of time. I don't want to rush that. I appreciate your all's willingness to go forth with that, but that takes a lot of planning to provide not just a safe but also effective training environment for anybody that would use it. Those are not something to be taken lightly. Secondly, the document that Councilman Rylands referenced about the net increase or decrease in overtime, I authored that, and to explain the statement, I did not want to make anybody feel like we were pulling the wool over their eyes, trying to say by hiring 3 firefighters, you're going to, in the end, save money. That was what I was trying to avoid. You're not going to save money, you're going to save overtime, but you're not going to save money on the overall budget by hiring 3 firefighters. Maybe that could have been better explained, but those were the 2 clarifications I just really wanted to make. So thank you.
Robin?
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. I feel that the city sales tax was implemented for everyone in the county and anyone that visits Buckhannon to help pay the tax. So therefore, we have that money from the county residents in our budget, $1.3 million. So they're already helping to pay this. And so they pay county tax, fire tax as well. Am I correct? And so now you want to implement a city one. So that's kind of like double taxing, triple taxing, because they're paying sales tax as well. And so I think the buck stops here. I don't think we need to go run to the county commission. I've talked to some of them. They're not interested. They have to pay their own fire department. They're not interested in helping with this problem, as far as I know from when I've talked to them. So I think you're trying to tack too many times to get something done when you already have the money there. And I've seen more money go to other projects that I shook my head at. But this is something that has to be done. It's for the safety of the firemen, it's for the safety of the citizens, it is for the safety of the whole county. And I think that it is something that is easily decidable to do it out of general money, the city sales tax. The $200,000 a year versus how much extra money that is being brought in. It's just a drop in the bucket. Thank you.
Can I say
Yeah.
something
Yes.
real quick? I want to kind of clarify something. When we develop these budgets, to keep saying we're using sales tax for this or that, we develop these budgets every year with general fund. When we're finished with the general fund, about 50%, we are a user organization, we are a workforce. About 50% of our budget goes towards wages. So we can't really say that these wages are coming out of sales tax. Mr. Thomas is a financial person too. You can say allocations of money however you want to. In the end, general fund is taking care of the wages. You would off-shift those capital expenses in materials and supplies to your sales tax because we develop the general fund budget and say, now we need to influx the general fund for trucks and paving and theater and Stockert Youth Center. We need to do that. So I want to make that clear. Just saying it's coming in from sales tax, we develop the budget, then we supplement general fund with that sales tax. And then just personally, I feel bad for you, your community leaders, but honestly, the onus of the morals here are on you. I, as a county citizen, am disappointed in my county commission. They can tell the fire board to come and help with this because we are going out into the county to do this. So I understand all the struggles you're dealing with. We can handle the funds this year and probably next year. But a wise man told me once that when you make your community strong, your county's strong. When your county's strong, your community's strong. When your county's strong, the next county's strong. So when we're talking about taking fees from these volunteer fire departments, we're weakening them. And we want a strong community. Buckhannon is very vibrant. That's why we have a lot of calls too. We have a lot of things happening in Buckhannon. So taking away from the fire departments right at this time, I think we would have to get with the county, have them step up to the plate, figure out how we need to help fund them, and then take the first due fire fee at some point. It's going to happen one day. It may not be in my time here, but one day we'll get to a position. I know that we're going to have to do a first due to supplement expenses.
And that would be restructuring the fee, not adding it on top of another fee.
No,
Just-
I am absolutely.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a
hope they never
third
go
one,
for
Robin,
the
it would be
cities.
restructuring it, not adding it on top of it. It would be a second fee, it'd be restructuring into one fee, just different.
If those county residents pay a first due to the city, they wouldn't be paying
Right.
to the
Be
county.
replacing it.
And Amby, I appreciate your comments, but if it's an understanding that at some point we're going to institute first due, why wait until our backs are up against the wall? Why? And if we don't take unilateral action, I have no confidence in collaborating and coming to some resolution because nobody does anything until they have to or up against the wall. So I'm trying to be proactive and say, let's take this action. It doesn't mean that it couldn't be undone through negotiations or collaboration, but you're not going to get anyone to the table until this happens. Now, maybe it happens between the second and third reading. I don't know. But from my perspective and life lessons, this is how you get things done. If you kick it down the can down the road, that's where it's going to be, and you're going to come on again. It's going to be a bigger issue. It's going to be more expensive, and
Well,
so,
we face the same issue with B&O. The very same conversations were happening back in
Right.
the B&O. And look what we did. We had to make other steps because B&O, we were going flatlining with revenues and expenditures, so then we had to look to another revenue source.
right,
It's going to happen.
right. guess my question is, why wait until your backs are against the wall and you're not going to accomplish anything in a negotiation without some leverage?
I understand.
And you can take that away if you want, it's not, doesn't have, but without moving forward with it, I think it's wishful thinking at best.
Let's go.
Well, the one challenge we have as a council, in my mind, is that once the sales tax was implemented, and we know that we're going to have some financial cushioning for the future to do certain projects and so forth, we need to have some discussions about the priority of those monies and how they're going to be utilized. And none of us are perfect in allocating money, but we need to have some pretty good discussions about, we did buy that piece of property for part of the Stalker project and the future. And the same thing with Citizens National Bank, the property down there. And we're still in the planning stage. But we do need to start having some meetings long-term to discuss what are we going to have this city and community look like in the next 10 or 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, real quick, final thoughts from Scott.
Okay. I have more than 4 minutes. I'm speaking from a unique position that I've sat in those chairs. I joined my first volunteer fire department in May of 1969. I've been a member of 9 volunteer fire departments. I retired from Buckhannon after 13, 14 years of service a year and a half ago. I'm also a school bus driver. Got lots of COVID funds right now. We're making a fortune driving a school bus. Guess what? They're going to go away just as well as these grants are going to go away. So it's short-term funding. I don't count on those funds. Our fire department in Buckhannon is the gold standard for not only our county, but our region. It truly, truly is. And whether you approve 3 firefighters or 2 firefighters, they'll find a way to make it work. I know they will. Fire departments that I've been involved in relied on duct tape and chewing gum to make things work. If budgets are cut, if funding doesn't come in because chicken sales up at Tolmansville are off in a year, they make do somehow. I support what Mr. Thomas says, what Mr. Riley says, Mr. Sanders says about taking action now about a fire fee. Increasing a fire fee not only in the county for our first due area, but also in Buckhannon. It's ridiculously low. A caramel macchiato double shot espresso costs more than a monthly fire fee in Buckhannon. That's ridiculous. Hot Fudge Sundae at Dairy Queen costs more than a monthly fire fee. It's time to take action, and these are legitimate fees. There's not a person in this county would object to, I'll give up my pack of Marlboros for a month, and that's it. But we've got to have other revenue streams. As an individual and a taxpayer, I don't want to commit our city funds ongoing without having a plan. The monies we have coming in from extra sales tax, etc., I think are great. We have allocated for infrastructure. We have an infrastructure needs in Buckhannon that needs great help all across Buckhannon. Sewers and pipelines and things have to be fixed. But if we start chipping away at this with this money we have in the bank now, I think we're false doing that. The fact that we need 3 firefighters makes us a better department. Yes, it does. If we have 2 firefighters, they'll work out the shifting. I know that. It's not convenient, it's not the best, but we are still the gold standard. So I support and advocate to council as someone who sat in that chair, someone who's been a member of the fire department and someone who is a taxpayer, not to go ahead and say we have money in the bank now and arbitrarily make that decision without making a firm plan and vote on a date or whatever it is to address the first due district. We need that. We supply services to over 50% of the county, and we have to face that fact. And we're not funding that service, I think, by grants that may have an expiration date in just a few years' time. I have 15 more seconds, so you all have to vote on something in 15 seconds. Thank you. I could go on forever, and you know that. But I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Council, you have it on your agenda. I am going to entertain a motion that we hire 3 additional firefighters for the city of Buckhannon.
I'm gonna make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, what?
Discussion.
Go ahead.
So,
Who was the, can I ask who?
Pam and Jack.
Pam and Jack, okay.
so you're about to decide to hire these people and spend this. Is there an intention to bring in the first due fire fee or not? I'll just
Yes.
give you a raise
Absolutely.
a hand. Does anyone support?
Wait a minute, okay, wait a minute. Mr. Thomas suggested that. I think the council has signified. I'm the only one on the council that doesn't support that. I think that Katie Kuba would agree. We've done a story in the paper on it, from, not to call her out, but I mean, I'm the only one here that has been quoted in saying, I don't support the first due. So I think am I correct? Everybody here is supportive of a first due, but maybe not right at this second. We want to get the fire department staffed now and revisit the first due fire fee in 1 year, and have time to discuss it and get an ordinance on the books and do it right. Is that where the council is? And that's where I recall the discussions being up until this point.
I think
it's more urgent.
I think I could deal with something if we said, okay, we will for 1 year fund the 3 firefighters, and we will initiate a first due effective July 1 of 2022. That gives us a lot, I mean,
You can't add that to this motion.
we can't.
That's
No.
Do that.
No, we gotta hire 3 firemen that know they have a job in a year. We can't, we
So-
can't.
I guess what I would ask, would the institution of a first due fire fee be on the next city council agenda?
No, not the next one. I mean, I think
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, these are hard decisions and hard conversations, but if you kick this can down.
because I think it's more, I agree with Andy. I think it's morally incorrect to go, okay, here's where we're at as a city council. We just implemented a water rate increase. And before anybody says anything, I know that these are totally separate, okay? We just implemented a water rate increase. Next year, we're going to have to implement a waste department increase. The following year, we're going to have to implement a sanitation department increase, because the last time it was increased was May of 2016. It was my first vote as a city council member. So as Councilman Rigger has reminded us, and we've had discussion, we need to take a better look at some of these fees. We know that those are all separate and those don't touch general funds, but the citizens of this community, to them, they're paying the city of Buckhannon for these services, and the cost of the services continue to go up. For us then to go into areas outside of our city limits, I understand that we're advocating that nothing would change inside the city limits, and I'm happy to hear that. But there are water and sewage customers that live right outside of our city limits that are going to be hit with this additional fire fee. I would also like to mention that it would be very difficult to, yes, get actual numbers on this, but our county citizens are going and shopping in this town. They're going to Walmart and Lowe's. They're eating at CJ Maggie's. They're eating at Stone Tower Brews. They're going to Buffalo Wild Wings. They're not just going one time per year. They're going multiple times per year. The implementation of the 1% sales tax was to help even the playing field of county residents paying for city services. That's why we did this. Those were the discussions that were had. So I have a philosophical issue. I understand. I'm not trying to be somebody that's just wanting to just spend the city's money willy-nilly here. I have a problem with right this second going after a first due fire fee when we are blessed. I understand what CJ's saying. You don't do it until your back's against the wall. But what are the citizens going to come back and tell us when we're pulling in this kind of money there, and we want more? The comment was made following the Thursday night meeting out in there What are we going to do? How are we going to balance this budget? We have more money coming in than we have to balance this budget. There's only so much we can contribute to rainy day. There's only so much we can contribute to projects. And yes, I understand that what I listed above were tangible assets, but those tangible assets, they need maintenance. We're not going to build that Stockard Youth Gym over there and then let it sit. It's going to require maintenance. The theater is going to require maintenance as long as we own it. Every single thing we do, every street we pave, every sidewalk we put in is going to require maintenance. There is no way to say that this money is literally going to be spent on one time and then we're going to be able to move on to something else and never touch it again.
I think we all know that, Robbie.
I'm not hearing that from the discussion today because we're not.
I'm not sure what your point is. The whole point of the first due thing was we recognize that, definitely. And we don't want to necessarily tie up 15 to 20% of something that's there now that's going to be recurring every year. That's the conversation.
So when we got approved for our 1% sales tax and we said that we were going to invest it in public safety, that we got approved on that.
Yes, we did.
And I will tell you that at discussions at the West Virginia Municipal League, the state legislature just about pulled the home rule program because a certain city in our region, just 30 minutes north of here, abused it. Because they said they were going to do something and did another with their home with their 1% sales tax.
Don't give me any justification for what the state legislature does.
But they. I mean,
I understand.
What are we supposed? If they pull the program, then we're all up the creek without a
Maybe we
paddle.
have a class action lawsuit against them.
All right.
Well, we're here to vote on this.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for, period. And I made the motion to hire 3 firemen, and I got a second. So where do we go from here?
Take the vote.
Call for
Okay,
the
let's
question.
vote.
I'll ask this one time: are you interested in modifying the motion at all, or do you want to make the motion as it stands?
I want to make the motion as it stands.
Okay. All right. I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Want to do a roll call?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
I vote against the motion.
Mrs. Albaugh,
I'm going to vote against the motion with sadness.
Sanders votes yea. Mr. Rieger,
Yay.
Mr. Rollins,
No.
Ms. Bucklew.
Yes.
There's the type.
We have 3 and 3, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And I will publicly ask the commissioners and the fire board to step up and come to the table to speak effectively about a first due fire fee immediately. And let's hash it out and let's find common ground.
Put it
We
on
have
the
to be
agenda.
aggressive. So Commissioner Nolte, Commissioner Tenney, and Commissioner Cutright, and the president of the fire board, the invitation is out there. We have to discuss this immediately.
Well, before we put it on the next agenda, I'd like to have the discussions and try to build the consensus before. So maybe not next agenda, but when we have the consensus and we're ready to move forward, I will support putting it on the agenda.
That could be indefinitely. So
Not if we don't let it. If
I
we-
would
We're not
say,
gonna let it. We're gonna push
put it
it.
on the first one in August. You know, this isn't gonna get resolved overnight. But if we don't have these difficult conversations and take some kind of action, then, you know, here we are again. So,
Let's work on having the discussions before we put it on an agenda. And we said, let's look to try to put it on the agenda by the first of the year.
that's too far off. I would, what?
But then we have it ready for the 7-1 budget year for next year if we're at that point ready to put it on an agenda.
Well, you're going to have private conversations, as they say, behind closed
No,
doors.
we're going to
in the
facilitate.
office, or you're gonna have
facilitate.
open meetings
We're going to
to
do it
do
the
the
way we've
people's
done it.
work.
We're going to facilitate it in public.
We have our friends from Channel 3 and our friends from 5 and our
WDTV.
friends from Buckhannon and our friends from Record Delta. I would love for you to cover the discussion between the county commission and the city council and the fire board. I think it would be interesting.
I have no good feelings.
I have great feelings.
Well, wait a minute. I want to make one comment that I think most of our citizens in this state have no clue how they're being hosed, okay? And I want to say this. One county commissioner makes more than everyone sitting up here, period, for compensation for 1 year.
Okay.
I think that, I want to get that out.
And
I want
that's
to get it out
fine.
publicly, okay?
And
And that's, it's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
It's not
Councilman
their,
Thomas, I
it's
really
not
don't-
their fault.
I don't care what anybody makes, so that's up to their.
I think it's-
I want results.
The state legislature,
Period, that's the end of the day. I
I
don't care
think-
what anybody in this room makes and what
I
anybody
don't
in this
care
room
either,
reports.
but I think
I want results.
the state legislature is
End of story.
tying their hands.
All right.
All right.
So we have dispensed with the one singular item on the agenda. At 10:25, I would entertain a motion that we
So
adjourn.
moved.
Second.